Hello and welcome back to the Winterthur podcast. When you think of historical research at a place like Winterthur, you may not think of tattoos. Humans have always desired to adorn themselves, and there were many reasons to get tattooed. Some tattoos showed ranking within a community, some told the history of an individual, and some were believed to imbue protection. Did you know that the first evidence of tattooing is from the Neolithic era? Tattoos have been integrated into cultural expressions since people started settling into civilizations. Ancient tattooing practices were widespread from present-day Japan to Greenland. We are lucky enough to have some pieces of tattoo history here at Winterthur. Today we are joined by Allie Alvis, our curator of special collections, to discuss tattoos and their connection to Winterthur. Thank you for joining us, Allie. Can you describe some of the historical objects related to tattoos in our collection?
Well, the Winterthur Library has 2 tattoo flash books as part of our special collections. For the uninitiated and uninked, flash book is the kind of equivalent to going to a tattoo shop and picking a design off the wall. Flash is basically ready-made tattoo designs, the heart with the mom on it, or the anchor, or whatever that you kind of think of as the stereotypical traditional tattoo. But what makes these 2 flash books very special is that they're from the 19th century. One of them, we actually have a name identified. The artist's name was W. Christensen. His book is dated to 1897, and it's this really cute pocket-sized sketchbook almost, something that you could easily buy at a Barnes & Noble. There's a little pen pocket in there and like a little ribbon closure, and it feels very modern in some ways. You could see an artist sitting on a bench sketching in a book exactly like this if you went outside. Christensen was from Denmark. He probably came to America at some point and was practicing tattooing here. The other flash book that we have is a little bit of a mystery, but an exciting one. So it is much earlier. We do not know what artist was behind it, but it could date as far back as the 1850s, in which case it would be one of the earliest, if not the earliest, surviving example of American tattoo flash in existence. So that is very, very cool. Unfortunately, that one has been rebound, so it's not in the same exact format that it would have been when the tattoo artist was working from it. But all of the interesting and amazing designs still survive in there.
How do we know all of this about these flash books?
These flash books are really interesting because, like I said, we do have a name for one of them, but the other one has no name, has no date. So specialists have looked at these, as have students at the Winterthur Material Culture program, which is really exciting. Former students such as Nicholas Schoenberger and Darren Bray, both of whom have really interesting careers now. Darren often auctions off tattoo-related material and ephemera, which is super cool. And Nicholas has a high-flying career working in marketing for a large company. So both of them have carried this interest in visual design to greater heights. But thanks to their scholarship, we have kind of laid the groundwork for when these are from, a better sense of their importance generally. The older flash book actually has a recipe for black ink that the artist would have been using to tattoo. And both Nicholas and Darren kind of fit those flash books into the larger context of American flash and tattoo history. Both their work and other tattoo scholars and practicing tattoo artists have been able to explore these books and, based on their aesthetics and their materials, project a sort of ballpark idea of when these books are from.
What do the objects in our collection tell us about historical tattooing culture? How do you think it differs from modern tattoo culture?
So both of our tattoo flash books kind of have a sort of sailor vibe to them. And for very good reason, because sailors were historically one of the largest consumers of tattoos. particularly in the 19th century and the early 20th century. This was a period in which not only were people's bodies generally more covered as a matter of sort of social acceptance, but that, the very act of having a tattoo was subversive. So being able to have that anchor on your arm as like a kind of secret thing, it's usually hidden under your sleeves, but your Navy buddies would be able to see it and compliment each other on their eagles or what have you. That has definitely sort of fallen by the wayside for larger popular acceptance of tattoos. I know both you and I have a lot of fun ink, and I think that that is indicative of the larger acceptance of body art. I remember growing up, my mom always said, like, oh, never get tattoos. You'll never be able to get a job. And here I am, wonderful job where I actually get to care for books about tattoos. And it's a fun way to express yourself. And I do think that the 19th century tattoo flash books that we have are the same kind of thing. It was just less acceptable at the time. The other thing is that most of the consumers of these tattoos would have generally been men. There are a few examples, especially getting into the 20th century, of tattooed women. Oftentimes you see these pop up in sort of sideshows, which speaks to the unusual consideration of this kind of body art. It was not a quote unquote normal thing to do. I think famously Prince Albert may have had a secret tattoo. Although it was not something that you could flaunt, it was something that kind of happened behind closed doors.
How do they fit into the history of tattoos?
These flash books are, as I mentioned, they're quite old in terms of American flash books. But in terms of the broader history of tattooing, they're not that old. Tattoos go back to the Neolithic period. The mummified remains of Otzi, who was found in ice, actually has tattoos on the skin of the mummy. So this is many, many, many eons ago. People were doing body art. There's some great other Neolithic tattoo examples of like prancing deer and sort of floral motifs, which is beautiful and fun to look at. But plenty of indigenous cultures have also practiced tattooing, again, for eons, whether that is in North America or in Asia or in Africa. Many peoples have engaged in tattooing for various purposes, whether it is just for adornment or for more sacred reasons. Japan, in particular, has a long history of tattooing. And at the Winterthur Library, we have a couple of great ornament books of Japanese ornament drawn from Japanese decorative arts, which modern tattoo artists have used to get inspiration to continue this Japanese tattooing tradition, which is really cool.
How did Winterthur come to own these books?
Both of these books we actually purchased in the 1980s, which I enunciate very much because in the 80s, these things were not as A, appreciated, or B, expensive as they are in 2026. So the librarians back then were very forward thinking. I have read the acquisition rationales for both of these items, and both emphasize how this is like a quote-unquote upcoming study in American folk art, which, although we don't usually kind of qualify it as folk art in this day and age, it very much is. It is a decorative art. It's just you're not decorating your room, you're decorating yourself. I'm very honored to sort of be part of this forward-thinking tradition, thinking of these books not just as a sort of countercultural thing that people outside of the upper echelons of society do, but it is something to be appreciated and understood within that decorative arts context. As I said, we have those fascinating Japanese ornament books. We also have a diversity of other ornament books concerning ornaments from all over the world, as well as things like fraktur art and manuscripts, where you can really draw very strong parallels between the flash in these books and what was once considered acceptable, proper decorative arts. These two things are not as far apart as was once thought.
What is the oddest thing you've found in one of these flash books?
They're both a little odd for different reasons. I mean, stylistically, they're quite different from what many artists kind of practice today. You see artists doing quote unquote old school or American traditional style tattoos. But even then, some of the faces in these tattoos are simple, I will say. They are a little bit rudimentary in a way that you don't necessarily see in modern emulations of the American traditional style. It's very sweet in a way, but you can tell that the artist was like, oh yeah, I have got this down pat. I know how to draw the female form. I can draw eagles, I can draw fish, I can draw anchors. Just don't ask me to draw faces. But I mean, other than that, I think there are a few fun designs, especially in the W. Christensen book. They're like weird fish, and there's this wonderful lady on a trapeze swing. These books are both heavily influenced by sort of circus and performer iconography, especially, again, in the Christensen Flash book. With more research, I think we would be able to trace the, at least images of women, back to promotional photographs or illustrations of performers of some sort, which again is a fascinating window into the circulation of visual media in that period and what was sort of seen as an acceptable tattoo vignette. Like in the Grossman collection 838, massive collection of ephemera. Highly recommend checking that out if you ever get to the Winterthur Library. We have postcards and promotional pamphlets and things like that dealing with the circus. So they're very good friends with the Christensen Flash book.
You have a tattoo from one of these flash books. Can you tell us about it?
The tattoo that I have is from one of the flash books. It is from the Christensen Flash book again. I do kind of favor that flash book over the anonymous one just because Christensen was a little bit more sophisticated in his art. There was a greater variation of theme. The older flash book has a lot of sort of military, sailor, woman mourning her husband who's gone to sea type of things, which just did not really fit my aesthetic. But the Christensen sketchbook has this great image of a woman in like a butterfly hat with big poofy sleeves, and she's like holding her hands behind her head, and she's looking like a little bit coquettish. And I just thought that one was really, really fun. I have that on my forearm, and I got it done at a tattoo shop in New York that actually has part of a museum attached to it of old flash and old tattoo machines and images of tattoo artists at work. So it felt like a very appropriate place to have this design inked.
If someone listening wants to come look at these flash books, how would they go about it?
Both of the flash books wonderfully are digitized and are available in our online library, digitalcollections.winterthur.org. So if you can't make it to Delaware, we understand. You can pull these up on your home computer or your phone or anywhere you want. But if you do want to come to Delaware, we will welcome you with open arms. Our special collections are available for anyone and everyone to use. To see any of our special collections, just contact us at reference@winterthur.org. And we can get you set up with an appointment to see our special collections in our reading room. We just ask that you tell us what you want to see. So in this case, the tattoo flash books whose call numbers are Doc 119 and Doc 22. You can also find fuller catalog descriptions of those at library.winterthur.org. In addition, just tell us when you would like to come in. So we are open for special collections appointments Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we have plenty of other books that would make fantastic tattoos if you are just searching for something bibliographic for your next piece of art.
Thank you so much for joining us, Allie. This is such an interesting topic, and I think we may have surprised some of our listeners. You can find images of the objects mentioned in this episode on our social media, and you can schedule an appointment with Winterthur Special Collections at winterthur.org/library to see these books in person. Be sure to follow us on social media to learn about more events at Winterthur that illuminate your interests or unlock a new passion. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening.